I'm like, it has been forever since I've been here, that I've been in front of you guys. I say welcome, good evening to everybody who is out there, who is listening, and who may even go back and re-record or review this video. And we're here talking about the Employee Retention Credit, ERC. And I know for myself, I was totally excited about hearing about the ERC, a part of the CARES Act and a $1.8 trillion initiative to help us business owners in retaining our employees. And today I'm excited to have Josh with us today. And Josh is actually the shepherd that led me to the ERC. Josh is our AFLAC representative out of South Carolina, and he is here today with us, and he's going to share some more information on this. So if you're excited, if you're ready to earn and get some of that money that is sitting on the table, you are in the right place. You are here with Josh, who is about to speak to you about the Employee Retention Credit. Josh, welcome, welcome, welcome.
Great. Hey, thank you for the kind introduction, Yvette.
It's most definitely deserving.
Yeah, next time you have a minor billing issue, I'm going to remind you that I'm the shepherd, and take it easy on me. No, but thank you so much.
I can't blame you, right?
It's never the shepherd's fault, but no, thank you so much. Thank you so much for the introduction. And yeah, I mean, to your point, in the role that I have, running my insurance operation, between the various agents, underneath me, we have almost 2,000 commercial clients, right? So, there's been a lot of confusion around the employee retention credit. So, what we did was we began to seek out a number of different tax credit firms, and we have a few that we work with today. And really what we've done is, leveraged our client base, helping guide them and direct them to these tax credit firms with the employee retention credit. And then, leverage that scale of business to make sure that it's very favorable terms for the business. But as far as the employee retention credit itself is concerned, the reason why I think a lot of folks have not taken advantage of it has to do with the fact that there's really been 3 iterations of it. And initially when it was rolled out, even if you had done 1 PPP, you could not qualify for this credit. Then you had to prove that you were down in gross receipts quarter over quarter. You can still qualify that way, but now there's other paths towards qualification, which we'll spend the majority of time discussing today, right?
And I can see that you're eager to get into it, get into the meats and potatoes and share it all with us, right? You're like, okay, but I'm ready.
That's exactly right. I do get excited about the employee retention credit because it is absolutely massive, right? So what businesses are eligible for, I'll start with that so that you all get equally as excited as me, is you are eligible for up to 50% of your payroll back as a cash rebate from the government with a maximum of $5,000 per year per employee in 2020, okay? And then in 2021, which the latest iteration of the CARES Act falls under, you are eligible for up to 70% of your payroll back as a cash rebate from the government with a maximum of $7,000 per quarter per employee. Okay,
Right.
so
Right.
max is out at $26,000 per employee. Now, if that employee makes, $20,000 a year, right, and instead of 40, right, then you'd be at about a $16,000 credit, right, but still incredibly significant, right? Now,
Absolutely.
everybody always wants to compare this to PPP, right, the other major relief for business owners, but it is structured very differently than PPP, all right? The entire country really did one PPP loan. I know some of you may not have, but a good majority of businesses did. And that, as you know, was structured as a loan, right? You had to spend it towards X, Y, and Z. You had your forgiveness application, right? And if you follow the rules around it, and the qualification factors, then it would be quote unquote forgiven. The way that the
Right.
employee retention credit is much different is it is monetized through amending your 941s, and you get a cash rebate above and beyond, obviously far above and beyond your payroll tax liability. So what that means is as this money flows back into your operation, it is unrestricted cash flow. Okay.
Right. And
So
that
basically,
I really just want to jump on real quick, Josh. And again, just to really emphasize that this is cash flow, guys. This is not like the PPP. And I have no problems in sharing with you guys, when myself and Josh were going through for our companies, going through the process of doing the calculations, and we're looking at it, and we come up with this number, and it's a significant number, over $500,000. And we're looking at that and saying, okay, well, what is the downfall, right? There's got to be a catch somewhere. There is absolutely no catch. You can use this as you will. Most definitely, always consult with your accountant. But you can use these funds as you will. It doesn't have the preset guidelines as the PPP did. Am I correct in saying that, Josh?
yeah, I mean, 100%. You choose how to allocate the funds, just like anything else flowing into your operation. Now, my joke is, I mean, Yvette got significantly over $500,000, right? So she goes and buys that yacht, right? You're going to pay taxes on that money,
That's
just like she
okay.
will with the business profits. But hey, if you spend it on employee benefits, right? Shameless plug for me, then that's a tax write-off, just like any, any type of payroll
No,
product.
I'll
But
pay the
yeah.
tax.
But yeah, you have the freedom to allocate those funds back into your business in a fashion that is going to help you grow, right? And really capitalize on it. So I am passionate about this credit because it's really the small business owner that's been forgotten about. There's a lot of national brands that have filed this credit. I know Lowe's has filed it, Best Buy has filed it, right? But the small business owner, right? If those big national corporations are going to be taking advantage of it, I want to make sure that my small business owners that I'm responsible for, you know what I mean, are at least steered in the right direction to know that it's available and know exactly how to monetize it.
Absolutely. So let's move on just very quickly then, Josh. And again, just because time is so limited and I can speak to you about this all day long, every day, it's beginning to excite me as much as it's exciting you. But let's talk about how do I actually qualify? And we talked about it being a small business. We had a couple of those different scenarios. But what is the qualification, and what then is the process if I wanted to go ahead and try to obtain some of these funds?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I appreciate that. So there's two paths towards qualification. Okay. The first path is what's called the gross receipts test. Okay. Because this credit is monetized quarterly. Okay. So in order to qualify in 2020 under gross receipts, you have to show that you had a 50% decline in gross receipts 2020 versus 2019 quarter over quarter. And in 2021, you have to prove a 20% decline quarter over quarter in 21 versus 2019. Okay, and that's just for the first 3 quarters of 2021. The other way that you can qualify, okay, is the path that is much more subjective. And I think the path that, business owners and even business advisors are undereducated on. So the way that it's worded almost exactly in the legislation is a partial suspension of business or government order that has limited your ability to conduct your commerce, travel, or meet in groups. Okay. Conducting your commerce being the most broadly defined term in the legislation.
Right.
And some things that we can point back to government orders and partial suspensions that have impacted a lot of businesses throughout the country, but really hamstrung home care businesses is the labor crisis.
Right.
Okay. I mean, especially if you're dealing with, Medicaid and have fixed prices, right? But even private pay, right? You can say that you can change your prices and put it back to the client, but I mean, can you really, right? So the other piece, the way that that ties back to the legislation is, for example, there was a federal government order that paid an additional $600 a week in unemployment benefits, right, on top of what they were getting from their state. I mean, in most states, people were making the equivalent of a $40,000 a year wage, and that's before you start talking about child credits and things like that, right? Well, how are you supposed to get someone to work for $12 an hour, right, $13 an hour, when they're making the equivalent of 20 for theoretically sitting on the couch and watching cartoons, right? And I'm not here to say that those additional unemployment benefits were a bad thing. I mean, for many folks, they were a great thing, right? But the impact that had on your business, right,
But it's definitely
was
a game
massive.
changer, and the impact, absolutely.
And to define impact, because that's an
Yes, yes.
important
And,
piece,
and we're
right?
still struggling with that today.
Exactly, right? And now impact just
Yes.
has to mean, it doesn't mean that, it impacted your profits, right? You could have shifted and pivoted through those problems and made a profit and still qualify for the credit, right? The whole reason those two massive letters were
Absolutely.
added in editing the ERC, those two massive letters being O and R, is yes, you can look at a gross receipt decline. You can look at a loss in revenue to qualify. Or you can look at these partial suspensions and government orders that limited your ability to conduct your commerce, even if you shifted and ended up making a profit, right? Staggering of shifts, really any to and from exercise, with your business is something to point to. But I know in many of the home care clients that I've spoken with, labor crisis has really been, the major impactful factor that we've discussed. I think you were about to say something about it. You still with me?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I can most. I am here. I am here. I think we have a little bit of network issues, but we still go on. We still got to get this information.
No, we do. Hey, Vet, you're breaking up pretty bad. I don't know if I am or not, but what I wanted to
Into the.
Oh, now you're back.
Okay, and you're back. You're with me? Okay.
Yep.
So we talked about the two different qualifying titles or categories. Mm-hmm. Is it one or the other, or do I have to qualify in both areas?
That's a really good question. Yeah. So no, it's an either or exercise. You do not need to qualify in both areas, right? So you can be profitable, miss the gross receipts test, right? But then qualify under these partial suspensions. And you don't have to hit every single partial suspension, right? Maybe there was no supply chain issues, right, for your business that can be pointed back to the pandemic. But you are looking at the labor crisis as an impact for your business, right? That's something that can be looked at quarter over quarter. So it does not have to be both metrics, and it doesn't even have to be multiple metrics within the partial suspensions. But the tax credit firms we work with will walk you through that qualification, and then do that calculation on your behalf on finding out exactly how much you do qualify for. Now, if I may, what I'd like to get, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, and I was just about to say, so let's actually move on to that actual calculation process, and I'm not quite sure whether we can divulge the company and the group that we are using, but can
Yeah.
we then share with everybody, Josh, in terms of how does that process happen? Explain
Yep.
the process that I went through. Actually, we should be
Yep.
looking for when we are collaborating and partnering with these groups.
Absolutely. So I know you've been kind enough for anyone that's part of your group to reach out to you directly. If they'd like to schedule a consultation with the tax credit firm, but you'd have a call where they go over kind of the general path towards qualification, then take a deep dive in discussing your business, right? And they have a justification template, that you would essentially fill out that documents those qualifying factors, assuming they agree that you've had impact. Now, to be very clear, that document does not need to be submitted to the IRS, right? If the tax credit firm says they have enough justification to move forward and file on your behalf, they'll file and you will get the money. There's no, getting denied, right? Because they can't deny you an amended tax return, essentially. That justification document is merely for the records of the tax credit firm and for your records as well. Then they will request all of the payroll information, which I won't go through on this call, but it'll be bullet pointed to you of all the payroll data and any PPP information and things of that nature that need to be provided, so that they run an exact calculation following all the legislative guidelines and then letting what you qualify for. Okay. Now, the reason why this is important. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to
No,
also just jump in there and talking about the PPP is to also just mention that, guys, we're not able to double dip. So if you have PPP, you cannot have your wages calculated on the wages that was already calculated for your PPP. That's called double dipping. So your tax firm are going to make sure that what you have been paid, or if you have been issued a PPP payout, that we are not double dipping on that same employee on those same taxable wages. Okay, so again, just be sure to know it's okay to have PPP and also apply and be approved for ERC. But whoever is doing your preparation and your calculations, they absolutely must not use the same numbers, the same wages that was there and that was calculated for your PPP distribution.
Yep, you're 100% correct.
I had to get that. Thank you very much, Josh.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, you were breaking up a little bit there. I'm not sure if that's you or me.
Okay,
but...
we're here. We're back.
Okay, good. Well, hey, somebody just asked the question to reiterate if PPP would go against you the way that they worded it. And look, it wouldn't. This is such a lucrative credit that you're going to get a credit above and beyond your PPP amount, even if you had 2 PPPs, right? But to Yvette's point, those wages just need to be backed out. And the tax credit firms we work with know exactly how to do that. Now, what I will say, okay, in 2022, helping people with this credit versus 2021. In 2021, most folks, I mean, they just didn't really know about it, right? But what happened is Forbes actually got an interview with IRS management in February, and IRS management was quoted as saying 70 to 80% of businesses should be looking at this credit, and American business owners are leaving billions of dollars on the table. What I have seen since then is a rise of what I would call predatory, fly-by-night companies, charging an exorbitant amount for this credit, asking for a whole lot of money up front. I'm starting to see a little bit of fraud like we did, with PPP. It's advertised on the radio, right? You can click a link on Facebook, right? I think with the IRS, giving such a someone like Forbes that has such a wide reach throughout the country and literally being quoted as saying 70 to 80% of businesses should be looking at taking this money. Now there's more visibility around the credit, but it's really important that you do it through a trusted source. Make sure you're getting favorable terms. It's great to have an option where you don't have to pay, anything up front. So I think right now it's important just to make sure that you're getting favorable terms and being assisted with filing this credit.
Right. Right. There is so much to the ERC that I know that we can't get it all in on one segment. Josh, I know that you are going to join us for a follow-up and a second segment regarding
right.
the employee retention tax credit. So right now, let's just summarize what we've spoken about today. This will lead us into sitting on for our part two. Where we can actually really get into the meats and potatoes of, the actual filing, filing of your 941Xs, all of those different things, and a lot of those questions that I know that many of our owners have got out there. So let's just do a quick summary, Josh.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, realistically, if you have not filed the ERC, let's start there. 100%. I mean, reach out to a vet to schedule a consultation. I mean, there's not a more valuable way you could spend 20 minutes, right? From there, it's really just having a conversation about your impacts and, where our various tax credit firms can potentially find the qualification. Then it is, simply a matter of putting it in their hands to assist you. And then really from there, it's just a waiting game. It's just a waiting game from the IRS. Now, I will say, that I haven't covered yet, where you should make this a priority is, my insurance agency through the tax credit firms we work with has overseen the filing of about 700 of these credits. And right now it's taking the IRS about 5 to 7 months, okay, to process and cash these checks for business owners. So we want to make sure we get through the qualification and the calculation process as fast as possible, because the waiting game, with the IRS right now is 5 to 7 months out. And I know how important this funding is.
Well, I'm going to add a little bit of an icing onto that statement, is that although it might take 5 to 7 months, guys, for IRS to actually issue that check, the beauty of it is from the time that it is filed, it starts to accrue interest.
That's right. Yeah.
It's accruing interest. So you're not losing. By no means are you losing. So that's just another there just to also consider. But Josh, there is so much to want to get into again, that's most definitely set for part two.
Yes.
But with that being said and done, I think that I know the answer to this. But just in closing, Josh, what advice and recommendation would you give to anybody as you leave us this evening? What advice would you give to our owners today?
Don't feel guilty or anything, about taking this money. I mean, you really, really need to look into it, right? Because, this was put in place for you retaining your employees through the pandemic, right? So, I mean, if you haven't looked into it, my greatest advice would just be do that for yourself, do it for your business. And honestly, look for ways, to reinvest it back, into your people. You were being rewarded for, retaining your people, right? If there's a way to reinvest it back in them, or, another advantage of having 5 to 7 months, because to your point, Yvette, if it takes longer than 60 days, you will get an interest check on top of your ERC payment, is talk with Yvette, talk with whoever coaches you in business on how to allocate those funds to reinvest back into your operations and really take your business to scale, instead of, paying half of it back to the government. You know what I mean? This might be a once in a lifetime opportunity to reinvest back in your business and really grow. And if you've got 5 to 7 months to plan and consult and put a strategy in place, then when that money comes in, exactly how to spend it most efficiently to catapult you exactly for the next 10, 20 years, and maybe, even into your, your kids' generations, right? Because that's why we all embrace and invest in entrepreneurship, right? Is to create a future for ourselves and for our families. So use this as a launching pad to accelerate that growth.
And that was such a very, very great piece of advice, Josh, is just to say, look, now you have it sitting there. Now you can really work on that strategy. We have somebody who's just asking the question, does it take 5 to 7 months to know whether you've been approved, or is it that once you've been approved until you get your check? I'll answer that one because I know this answer. So it is actually 5 to 7 months to actually receive your check. It actually takes about 5 weeks, 4 to 5 weeks from your tax credit firm to be able to let you know what you are qualifying for in terms of dollars amount.
Yep. You hit it on the head exactly. Absolutely. Yep.
Okay. It's going to be up to you. Yeah, it answered your great question. Sheena, thank you so very much for being here. We appreciate you commenting and saying that it was great information. We are going to be doing a part 2. So Josh, I thank you so very much for your time. I thank you so much for your energy, your passion in, again, exploring these things that are out here for our small business owners and getting them to a position, just getting that information. I so appreciate that, and I so appreciate you. With that,
I appreciate you as well. It's an honor. Thank you
so very much, Josh. With that, guys, we are going to close it out today. And again, just keep an eye on our Facebook page. Go over to our YouTube channel. Please hit subscribe. You'll see all of our re-recordings there. You'll also see it in our Facebook group as well. But until the next time, we're going to say good night.